And we will start with Chairman Gray.
Well, thank you all for having me. This has been a vigorous campaign season. There's been so much attention that's been drawn to this race, and I think that's good for the people of the District of Columbia. We've been to forums where there have literally been hundreds of people who have been in attendance. We have had straw polls in the city that have drawn literally hundreds of people, and I'm delighted to be able to say that of about 30 endorsements that have been awarded in this campaign, I've gotten 25 of those. And of the straw polls that have been conducted, the 8 that have been conducted, we have won 7 of them. And it's a wonderful affirmation, frankly, of the support for us, but for the desire of the people to be involved in their government in this city. I have a platform on education, for example, that is broader than any that has been advanced, and that is a birth through 24 approach. That begins with early childhood education. I was the person, the architect of legislation that made a commitment to universal pre-K services in the city, the first city in America. We said that we would do that by the end of 2014. We will have that accomplished, frankly, within a matter of 30 days, having created more than 2,000 slots, and will be the first city in the USA to be able to say that we've done that. As mayor, I want to open the door to universal access to our infants and toddlers. We'll have means-tested approaches to that because it is axiomatic. The earlier we get these kids, the more likely they are to be able to benefit from a K through 12 education. We have a robust charter school system in the city, and I want to see parity between our charters and our DC public schools because we now have 28,000 kids. 40% of our public education population is now enrolled in charter schools. We need to reform special education. It is unconscionable that we spent last year on putting kids in private schools, does not include the classrooms in DCPS nor charter schools, $166 million spent on 2,800 kids in private schools spread all over the country, Arizona, Texas, Florida. We need to also focus on restoring, and I agree with the comment earlier, restoring career and technical education to our schools because it will have a material impact on our dropout rates. We have a new community college, which I was instrumental in helping to establish in the city. It is now a year old. We have over 2,000 students, and I want to see that grow as a robust option for our kids as they come out, and frankly for our young adults to be able to go back and pursue further education. We have got to get people back to work again. We have an unemployment rate on the east end of this city of 19% in Ward 7, 30% in Ward 8, and precious little has been done to dent that, and it's one of the reasons why people feel so disaffected at this stage. We've made it easy for you, and that is when you go to your ballot, the first name on there is Vincent C. Gray. I invite you to vote for me if you haven't voted already, to vote for me on September 14th, and I look forward to working with you as your next mayor of the District of Columbia.
Chairman Gray. Mayor Fenty.
Well, once again, my chief opponent has come to a debate and not answered questions and not talked anything about his most significant management tenure, his directorship of the Department of Human Services in the administration that led us to the control board in the early 90s. He also has thrown out the continued wild allegations of cronyism. I'll just briefly read from the Post editorial board where they say the district has come a long way since the days when who you knew mattered more than what you could do. Mayor Anthony Williams, Mr. Fenty's predecessor, did much to bring integrity to the process, and the Fenty administration has continued that with their choice of the highly respected David Gragan as the chief procurement officer, who's widely seen as continuing those reforms. If Mr. Gray has evidence to the contrary, we hope that he will produce it before Election Day. Now, we've also heard my opponent talk about streetcars. He is, in his own words, a quote-unquote supporter of streetcars. Name me one other person who's ever served on a legislature who is a supporter of something and then cuts the entire budget for it the night before the council vote, after having a public session where all of the media were invited and all of the other city council members. And then I love this part where he says that it's because there wasn't a plan to support the, well, there's a 150-page plan on the DDOT website, first of all. But two, if there wasn't a plan, why did you find $40 million the very next day, which we had to borrow at more cost, when everybody started to email your office and criticize you for what you had done the day before? Now, if you want to know the answer to that, you're going to have to wait a while, because I asked him this question at the Fox 5 debate, and he didn't answer it then either. For the first time today, we're hearing that all of a sudden, after we've done it for 2 or 3 months now, he doesn't support the way the bike lanes were laid down on Pennsylvania Avenue as well. I guess, you know what I mean, you didn't feel enough to say it when we laid down the paths in the first place. You're again waiting until a political season to make an announcement the same way you are with Peter Nichols. But the thing that takes the cake is when my opponent said that he can't even name all of the times that he's been asked the question about Michelle Rhee, which means he cannot name all the times where he has not answered the question. You're the chair of the council. You're the chair of the council's education committee. We know it's not that you won't make a personnel decision, because you just told all of us you're not going to keep Peter Nichols. The real reason is Michelle Rhee makes tough decisions that are not popular in the city, but she does it for the right reasons. Being a leader, you cannot put your finger in the wind. Being a mayor, you have to make tough decisions. The toughest decision in this city right now is how we're going to lead the school system and how we're going to do things for the kids for a while. My opponent refuses to make those tough decisions. Vote Fenty all day long and on September 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fenty and Mr. Gray are experts at pointing fingers at each other and talking about their record. Mr. Fenty will talk ad nauseum about the mismanagement at DHS while Mr. Gray was in charge back in the 90s. But what Mr. Fenty doesn't talk about is the money that was missing from those clients back in 2005 that his bar association found him guilty of taking. So now he just said that's old news, okay? He just said that was old news, but he just talked about Mr. Gray back in the 90s. This happened in 2000. You see how ridiculous this is? They talk about these issues because they don't want to get down to the real issue. The real issue is Mr. Fenty will say things about Giant Foods and all the recreation centers that were done in Ward 7 and 8. And DCHA that he had this mysterious involvement with. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was a part of the executive committee of the Development Corporation of Columbia Heights that laid out the plans for DCHA. Mr. Fenty was nowhere around, but he'll take credit for that, just like he'll take credit for everything Mr. Williams did before him. Mr. Gray, think about unemployment figures in Ward 7. They're at 19%. He has represented that fine community now for the past 6 years. What has he done to address the unemployment rate in Ward 7? And what makes you think he'll do anything about the rampant unemployment across the city? Nothing. These are serious issues, people. I want you to go to my website, leoalexanderformayor.com. I want you to call my campaign office at 202-726-1018. I want you to volunteer. I want you to get informed. This is not a personality contest. I know the Washington Post arbitrarily picked these two gentlemen to cover. We have 5 people on the ballot, but they won't allow you to know anything about those other 3, and you have to ask yourselves why. Frankly, I don't even know why they chose me out of the other 3 to invite here today, because, you know, to most people, I don't even exist. This gentleman has raised close to $5 million. The other one on my far right is approaching $2 million. I have raised somewhere around $35,000. Think about the strings attached to that money. The developer strings for Mr. Fenty, the big business and union strings for Mr. Gray. Who is going to cut the deal that benefits the District of Columbia and its citizens? Me. That's who. Think about those choices. I'm number 3 on the ballot. My name is Leo Alexander, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Again, thank you to Chairman Vincent Gray, Mayor Adrian Fenty, Leo Alexander, and thank you also to the Georgetowner and Sonia Bernhardt, to Eagle Bank, to the Georgetown Business and Professional Association, the Citizens Association of Georgetown, and Tony and Joe's. The spin room's out here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Carol.